Welcome, low ego action heroes. It's me, Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com. We're a full service CX and UX agency, and welcome to episode 95 today of our podcast. Today it's going to be kind of a free Ask Anything, but not of me, because that's tomorrow. Tomorrow is office hours Ask Me Anything. Today we are meeting, hopefully correctly pronounced, Amy Santee. Let's bring her in. And Amy, as I open up 6,000 more windows so I can juggle this show. And by the way, let me quickly say we are now also streaming on Twitch. So find us as deltacx.com, all written out. There's going to be fun and surprises later. So Amy,
Cool.
tell everybody who the heck you are.
Yeah, Amy Santee, and I will spell it. That's S as in super, A-N as in nifty, T-E-E. Website is amysantee.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am a career coach for user experience and design and technology professionals. I have had a 10-year career as a user experience researcher myself, and just last year decided to shift into career coaching. Careers has always been something of interest to me, not just my own kind of squiggly career, but helping other people, mentoring other people, and now officially getting into the coaching side of things. So that is what I do. I'm based in Portland, Oregon. And does that sound good, for a little intro?
Yes, I totally believe you. I am trying to figure out how to. We're having a little problem today with the YouTube comments, so I want to apologize to everybody. They are not totally coming up in my system, but I will do my best to watch the chat room where Paul says, "Greetings, Amy." So today is Ask Amy Anything, and we did not start out with questions, so I'm just going to ask a few questions that I have seen go by on this channel, but this is for you all to ask Amy anything. So get your questions in. Amy, I hear a lot about portfolios for UX researchers. Do you believe a researcher has to have a portfolio? And if so, what's your recommended format?
100% need to have a portfolio. The reality is that researchers work in the field of design. The way that we communicate our work, our stories, what we're all about, is impacted by the fact that we work with designers who communicate in this way. You know, when you get into a job, you're often going to be doing storytelling verbally and visually. And so I think of the portfolio as a way to start getting practice with that. And you might hand a portfolio in to someone for a job, but it's likely that you're going to present it in an interview as well. So it's the same kind of deal. You want to have something that can very clearly communicate what your experience is, what you're competent at, what your professional story is, and be able to go through the process of, here's a project I did, here is the challenge and the problem we were trying to address, and here's how I went about doing that with my team. Here's how I collaborated with people. Here's how I made decisions about what research questions to answer, what methodologies to choose, how to analyze the data. And of course, the findings are nice, but not the center. Those are not the center or the focus of your portfolio. It's more about that process that you went through, and being able to articulate that to people not only shows that you have competency and awareness of what research is and how it fits into product development, but that you're a strong communicator as well.
Excellent. Thank you. And do you believe that people need a PDF portfolio for research or a website-based one or both? What do you think?
Good question. My philosophy is be findable online. So LinkedIn, website, be findable online so people can learn about you. And therefore, if you have a website, great. You don't necessarily have to have a website, but I highly encourage people to have a place beyond LinkedIn where they can share more information about their experience, projects they've done, and that sort of thing, prior to getting to the point where you need to submit a portfolio. So the more people can understand you and decide, do I want to talk to this person? Are they the right potential fit for my job? The more they can do that proactively, the better. And then by the time they do invite you for an interview, then you can also bring that PDF or Google Slides version to present in a storytelling format. It'll have the same information roughly, but of course your web design and the way you lay it out there will be different than an actual slide presentation to some extent.
Great. Thank you for that. I hear so many different opinions, so it's always good to hear yours on that one. Another question I get sometimes is if I really have my heart set on research and I think I want to go into research, how much information architecture or interaction design or prototyping should I study? Do I need to know that? Is that nice to know? What's your opinion?
I don't believe it is necessary for you to be a researcher to know how to enact those types of things, to create prototypes, to create information architecture plans. But I do feel that is important for you to know what those things are, because you're going to be working within information architecture for a product. You're going to be working with product designers. You need to know what visual design is. You need to know what a prototype is. You need to know these things that your research is going to interact with. However, if you're a researcher and you happen to have some design experience, maybe you went from design into research, that's not a bad thing. I think that could potentially set you apart from other candidates depending on what the role is. But yeah, I think that's something that really helped me when I was getting into this field 10 years ago was I knew research. I came from anthropology, very strong research-oriented field. But what I had to learn was, what is product design all about? It's not the best thing to do to jump into research and not understand the world that you're working in. And so the more you understand that, the more you can speak to it when you're doing that interviewing, and the easier it will be for you to collaborate with other people.
Great, thanks. And we've got Harrison in LinkedIn saying hello and Ikening saying hello. I hope you'll all have questions. Ikening says, hello, Debs, Amy, and fellow low ego action heroes. Looking forward to this session. Ooh. We've got our first question from Ralitza, but I think this might be the type of thing that we might have to follow up with you on later, because the question is, can you share some good examples of research portfolios? That might not be links you have handy right now, or do you happen to know of some researchers off the top of your head where we should go running to their website and see a great portfolio? Or can people find you later maybe on LinkedIn and ask you for some examples, or post on LinkedIn?
Please reach out. I keep a list of those things. I collect resources and examples for when I work with my clients on this type of stuff. But really just get on LinkedIn and search around for people, researchers at any level, and say like, oh, does this person have a website? Let me go check their website out. And you can very easily find examples using that method. Lots of people have websites. Some people have portfolios on their LinkedIn. So just do some exploration. And, I will say too that if you dig into what's out there, there are some decent Medium articles that talk about the flow of a presentation or a case study. There are good resources out there, but then you need to watch out for, some of the resources.
We need you to curate this. We need you. Yeah. Let's face it. We can try to recommend Medium articles. We can try to recommend looking at people's portfolios, but most people still have trouble recognizing the good from the bad.
It's true. It is hard. That's something I like to do, is I like to cull through resources, and anytime new stuff comes out, I'm all about checking it out and pulling it into my list, or going, okay, no, that's not useful, because it is hard. And there are a lot of opinions, especially I think from people who, are newer to the field, and maybe they've been taught a certain way, but it's actually not reflective of the best way to go about talking about a project that you've done. So yes, please get in touch with me, and I can send you some links for ones that I have seen out there that are good.
Great, thank you. And I also want to remind everybody, this may sound familiar, but remember, we are now live on Twitch. We're adding Twitch to all of our streaming, and I'm going to be whipping up some new tricks there, since you can do a lot more fun things with Twitch than YouTube. And also, I found it has the lowest delay. So if you want this to feel like a conversation even more, Twitch has less than a 7-second delay. LinkedIn people, I hope you will move over, because LinkedIn is often a 3-minute delay, and it hurts. Oh. So I hope to find everybody everybody on Twitch, the account is deltacx.com, all written out. Someone was already deltacx.
Do
So
you
I
have
hope
to
we'll
have a
see you there.
login or a username to watch your Twitch account, by the way, or can they just join?
I think anybody can watch, but I have to admit, I don't know Twitch that well. I'm relatively new to it. My boyfriend is saying hello from Twitch, and Wilson is saying yay Twitch. Wilson says they can just join. Sounds like he knows Twitch a little bit. So
Cool.
Wilson, I hope we'll see you there because we're going to have some fun there. Thinking about another question I get a lot about UX research. And hey, everybody, this is Ask Amy Anything. I'm throwing softballs at her until some
Anything.
of you come up with questions. So
Anything.
come on already, peeps. We got lots of time here together, so get those questions out
I'm
there.
ready.
Yeah, throw the tough stuff at her. Another thing I hear a lot is, ooh, research. Do I need a graduate degree? Is a graduate degree nice to have? Can you still get a great job in corporate research? I mean, academic, we know you probably need that degree, but corporations or agencies, is the degree beneficial? Does it work against you? How do you see having that advanced degree in research?
This does not work against you. If you are good at talking about what you know how to do and you can join a team and jump in and collaborate and learn stuff, then, having a PhD or a master's is not going to work against you. You are bringing strong research expertise, the foundations of research, how to think theoretically and conceptually about stuff, how to design studies with rigor. That's awesome. And I have a master's from a program in anthropology, and it really did prepare me very well to do research that is of quality, essentially. That said, no, you don't need that. I think if you do your due diligence, which is like my favorite phrase that I say a million times a week these days, because it applies to everyone for everything, do your due diligence, pick up research books, talk to people, try to understand, like, what is UX research all about? What is included in it? How do I design valid and quality studies to make impact on a product? How do I bring other people into the process? Research is not just asking some questions and then getting some answers. Research is defined by being systematic. You are designing a systematic study, data collection with boundaries, and not just kind of doing it willy-nilly. So yes, a master's degree, a bachelor's degree even possibly, but a higher ed degree can teach you all of that. But that's not true for everyone. That's not where everyone comes from. People come from drama, people come from English. And I think any background is awesome and very applicable if you do your due diligence to learn about the career that you actually want to do.
Thanks. We've got lots of questions queued up in the chat room. Thanks to
All
everybody.
right.
Hello, Kayleen, saying hi from Twitch. Great to see you joining live there. Gwen says, howdy, folks. Gwen in Austin. I'd like to get an invite to Amy's list as well. So maybe everybody go to LinkedIn, follow Amy, and maybe after this broadcast, Amy, maybe you can write a post on LinkedIn with some of your ideas or recommendations, and that way all your new followers can come see it.
Followers. Well, can I just say
Followers. Yeah,
something? Just
always.
message me and tell me what you want. Just tell
Okay.
me what you want and I will send it to you. If you want a resource for this or that, just message me and I'll get it to you.
Just message Amy, everybody. Okay, back to the world. Message her on LinkedIn. So Chris in YouTube asks, hello, I've been doing a couple of interviews lately and it looks like the potential employers are liking me so far. Any tips on salary negotiation? Congrats,
Oh,
Chris.
yeah. Yes. Congratulations. I'm so glad you're at this point. You should always negotiate. You should always have a conversation. And negotiate is kind of a heavy loaded word. So think of it as a conversation between two entities in a business relationship, because that's what this is. I work with a lot of people who are afraid to negotiate, who are afraid to ask for more money, who don't want to be quote unquote greedy by asking for what they deserve. And that's the position you have to take is, I'm really good at this. I have a lot that I'm bringing to this job. What is it that I deserve? What compensation is fair to me? What you need to do is have that powerful pose going into these conversations, you have to do research. So if you're looking at salaries in UX, research design, whatever it might be, there are numerous salary studies out there. The UXPA salary study, the UXR, is that what that organization is called? Salary study. There are several salary studies out there from over the past couple years that could give you some good insights. That said, when I look at those salary studies, they don't necessarily line up with what I have made in my own career and what I know other people make in their career.
Okay.
It might sound scary, but ask other people. Like, do you have friends and colleagues who you trust? And you can just say, hey, I'm applying for this job. Can you help me understand what a going rate or range is for this type of job in this type of company, this type of product? Because it will vary, right? So arm yourself with that powerful stance, arm yourself with data, be confident going in, and always, always ask. You will often be offered something lower than what they have actually budgeted for. Some companies want to pay you lower. Some companies want to pay you higher. So sometimes you will actually get offered more than what you asked for. I really think it depends on the company, but you have to take control of that conversation. And I have lots of resources on this topic too. So feel free to reach out to me if you need anything.
Everybody, please stalk Amy. Okay, thanks for that question. Now we've got one, and Chris, keep us posted on how it goes and where you land.
Yes.
Wilson has a question. Wilson says, I've been working from specs provided by product managers and stakeholders. It's hard to emphasize with the users. Oh, sorry, he probably means empathize. It's hard to empathize with the users if I'm just designing off the spec. Got any tips on how I can do research with these constraints?
So specs, I don't know what the specs are, unless it's just like a list of specs.
My guess would be, if I can guess, just because I've been in this situation too, my guess is that normally a product manager or stakeholder might try to say, here's what we're shooting for. And it sounds like if the company is partially set on a direction, what kinds of research might still be best if they think they know where they're going?
Well, it depends on how much time you have. If they're shipping this in 2 weeks, don't even bother. If they're shipping this in a month, you probably don't even need to bother with that either. It's first ask the question, does my team want to know new information? If they're not going to take in new information, then sorry, don't bother doing that. If they're curious and there is a space of time where you can gather some data, analyze it, and come up with some implications for what to do with this product, yeah, by all means. You're going to have to get, I don't know, down and dirty. You're going to have to get a little bit more lean, not in the sense of lean UX, just more lean with your activities. Maybe less documentation. I'm burning. No, you know what I mean though. So
Yeah.
less, you don't have to do as thorough of documentation of stuff. You don't have to do as thorough of documentation of your whole project, a big report or anything like that. Try to get this research done as quickly as possible. Using guidelines of what is quality research during a tight time frame. You are going to probably want to focus more on usability at this point. If things are already designed, whatever level of fidelity those might be at, just to kind of get the lowest hanging fruit stuff taken care of. But again, it really goes back to your team and what they're willing to take in. And I have to say that reminds me of a time I worked at a big company where I had been, doing my job as a researcher, and then an executive swooped down and said, "Hey, do research on this thing." I didn't want to. I didn't see the point in it, but I was forced to do that. And the research was never used simply because it did not have an ability to have an impact prior to the team shipping this thing out into the world. So don't do work that's not going to go anywhere, is my point.
Okay, good points. Thank you. I hope that helps. If anybody has follow-up questions to your own or someone else's question, put it up there. Our next question comes, let's do Paul's question and then we'll do Ralisa's question. So Paul's question was, best practices on how to present research results to business stakeholders who might be skeptical or uninformed.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to get Here, if you can address the skeptical, uninformed people prior to getting into a room with them to tell them what's been found through your research, that's the best way to preempt that kind of situation. So, as researchers, designers, whoever, our job is not to just sit down and do these things. We have to think bigger about our team and our organization. We have to think about educating people so that they understand what we're doing and why it's valuable, why it's important. Some people you work with, you don't have to do any education, and that's a really nice place to be in, but that's not always the case. So if you can try to bring those people along throughout the process of research, if they're an executive and they don't have time, at least communicating to them what you're doing, keep them in the loop, see if they have questions along the way that you can address. So again, you don't get into I was going to say conference room, but a virtual room with them and try to convince them to believe in something that they have a skeptical perspective on, fundamentally speaking, like qualitative research or whatever it may be. When you get into the room, though, if you can walk into that room, if you can sit down in the Zoom room with confidence that you did very good research, that you designed it in a way to, again, make sure that it is quality, valid research, and you have the confidence to tell the story that the data showed you, that's a big part of it too. Walk in, be able to answer people's questions, be able to pull out examples, be able to talk about why it's okay to talk to a smaller group of people for qualitative research. Have questions in the back of your mind that you think might come up. It's about preparing yourself. And that's all you can do is really control yourself and try to impact people in some way. But there is a threshold, right? So yeah, preparing yourself, thinking about questions that you might get, and it gets easier over time the more you practice it. This is something that younger people, people who are earlier on into this career, struggle with. I definitely did, and practicing it gave me better ideas for how to be strategic and tactical about this kind of situation.
Great, thanks. And Relitsa's follow-up question to the previous question was, really curious what you said when you said that you shouldn't even bother if it's a month. Can you share how long it takes to do research? So I know not every piece of research takes a month, but what would you say for maybe generative research? How much time do you tend to recommend? Again, not in the academic world, in the faster moving corporate world.
Your sound blanked out. What are you
Oh,
referring to? What kind of research?
yeah, if maybe generative research,
Okay.
and again, thinking of the corporate world, not necessarily the academic world.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if we're thinking about the along that spectrum of foundational exploration, generative to evaluative, I mean, you take as much time as you have, right? You have to work along the lines of the team that you're working with. And I guess I'm assuming that this person or researchers can be embedded on a team. I know that's not always the case. But if you're embedded on a team, you want to understand what their timeline is, what kind of time frame or process they're using to build a product, and fit the research into that, while also having conversations about what can we change about this timeline so we have enough time and resources to do research throughout the process. And I can't pinpoint any specific time. You can take 3 months to do a foundational study. If it's a big thing, if it's multi-phased, if it's multi-method, you have multiple user groups, it really depends on all of this stuff. People ask me like, oh, okay, how long does the typical project take? I can say from my experience, 4 or 5 weeks for a standard kind of, qualitative research with a smaller group of people. But that's assuming you're doing lots of other work at the same time. If you're not doing work at the same other projects at the same time, it could be shorter. So it's really difficult for me to answer that question. But again, I just want to emphasize the importance of having a good relationship with the rest of your team so that you can have a conversation about this and keep them looped in, rather than being kind of a lone wolf person who goes out and does research and then brings it back and expects the team to take that in without them kind of being involved in that process from the beginning.
Great, thanks. And we've got more questions coming. One of them came in anonymously, and I'm assuming you want to ask it to
Mm.
Amy and not to me for tomorrow's Ask Me Anything. So we're going to ask it to Amy, and tomorrow I'll say, listen to yesterday's thing 25 minutes into the show. The question comes in completely anonymously by email and says, my design lead isn't UX research friendly, very talented visual design wise. Should I encourage them to pursue some professional development in using research? I don't feel like I can learn much from them from a research standpoint.
So I don't know if I'm interpreting correctly, but is this about the researcher having impact with that person, or getting them, or trying to convince them that this is helpful? I don't know if I understand the question
It's the
fully.
downside to the anonymous questions because then they usually don't always write back. But the way that I take this is that their design lead is more of a visual designer and not as familiar with or into UX research. Should this person, I guess, I don't know if they're a researcher or a designer themselves, but should they encourage this person to try to learn more about UX research?
I mean, within the confines of a diplomatic professional conversation, I'm sure you could encourage them to look into it. You have to be, I don't know, you'd have to frame that in a very specific way so it doesn't come off as like you don't know about this thing that you need to know about. Um, what about embodying that? What about educating them that in your own work, through your own work? So doing research, meeting with them, collaborating to decide, okay, what is something we can learn about to infuse your designs? Now, if a design lead doesn't know about UX research and they're more visual, that's a confusing thing for me, because I don't know when a design lead should be focused just on visual. That I don't know if that kind of scenario makes sense fully. But yeah, I would try to educate them by showing examples, by just doing things, looping them in, and then maybe they'll get curious. Maybe they'll have questions for you. Yeah, I'm not. That's too specific, but generally speaking, I would say that that could be a good approach.
We get a lot of specific questions here, so thanks for tackling that one. Our next question
Sure.
comes from friend of the show, Naz, and Naz asks, any tips or resources for becoming a better storyteller?
Watch people who tell stories. Go on TED Talks, go to conferences, go to Debbie, learn how other people tell stories. Just watch them. Watch how the language that they use. How do they set up the story? What do they start with? How do they humanize their story? I mean, how do they pull in emotions? I think those are two of the biggest things, especially if we're telling the story of research, or even if we're telling the story of our own professional journey. So those are kind of the same thing, right? It's like, who am I today? Where did I come from? And why am I here applying for this job? So, like, present, past, future, telling your professional story in a very concise way. How did I get to become a researcher? Why did I get interested in this field? Did you study something specific? Have you had some internships? What have your past jobs been? What excites you? And then here's why I am applying for this job. And here's why I'm excited about joining your team. So that's an example of storytelling in an interview context. And I think the same could be said for research, right? It's like, here's where we are today. Here's some things we learned, and here's what this means for the future. Or take the company out of it, take the product out of it altogether. Here's what's going on in the lives of the people that we spoke with. And here's what this means. So tying a thread through all of that to indicate that you spoke with human beings, you spent time with them, you learned from them, you gained insights from them, and then talking with your team about the implications for the product that you're working on. There are lots of examples out there. They don't have to come from UX, though. They can come from storytelling in any domain or discipline.
And thanks for that. I think we did an earlier podcast on storytelling. And so you can always search YouTube for Delta CX and something that's on your mind. And chances are, if we have a video, it's going to come up. So try Delta CX storytelling, especially after tomorrow. In about 23 hours, I'm releasing more than 30 new perspectives videos. So we're going to have lots of new topics to cover in short videos. I also want to remind everybody, won't you please subscribe here on the YouTube channel or here on the Twitch channel. Twitch doesn't have subscribers yet. Just follow me for now. If you're on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. Helps with the algorithm. You can also join our Slack workspace. And now we have the tip jar. Totally optional, but funds my future streaming computer. So it was originally funding cheese, but there were some good donations coming in. So now it's going to fund a computer. So thanks to that. And I hope people, by the way, if you are on Twitch, special sneaky thing that we're going to do this month is at the end of the month, I'm going to give away an autographed copy of my Delta CX book, the full color hardcover library version. And I will autograph it to you personally. You just have to type in !giveaway if you're in Twitch. And you'll be able to join, and we'll draw a winner at the end of February. Happy February, everybody. So if you don't already have my book and you're interested, please pop over there. So here we go.
That's very generous of you.
Oh, thank you. The funny thing is I bought a bunch of these books. I had them printed and I figured, 2020, I'm going to be, speaking all over the world, and I'll bring my books and sell a few. And then, of course, I didn't go anywhere. So I have all of these books. And so I'm going to be giving them away. And so please, and on Twitch, we are currently deltacx.com written out because someone was already Delta CX and I didn't want to be like Delta CX1. So deltacx.com on Twitch. I hope you'll find me there. We are live right now there, and you can switch on over. So let's look at a couple of other questions. Naz, if you have a follow-up question to that, let us know, but hopefully that's there. And Shannon says, so excited about the new perspectives. Thank you. There's like 30-something of them. Chris, who we know is interviewing for some jobs right now, says, how can I tell if a company undervalues UX research? And I get this question too. Are there things that we can ask in a job interview that help us take the temperature of how the company approaches or feels about research? What do you suggest?
Yeah, that's something to investigate. And unfortunately, even though UX seems to be this big field that everyone cares about, it's not always the case. It depends on the company. It depends on the team. First of all, look to see do they have a team? Do they have a team of UX designers? Do they have UX researchers? If it gets even more nitty gritty, if they have UX writers, if they have content strategists, I feel like that's a really good sign, right? Because they're adding on people with capabilities that other people tend to take care of. And if you have someone who's like a super specialist within UX, that I think could be a good sign. So, ask about the team, do some research on LinkedIn. Do they have a company blog where they talk about UX and design related things? I know a lot of very large tech companies, if you can think of it, you can go on their website and they probably have some kind of design blog. I think that is a good sign. If you get to the point where you want to ask questions to an individual, just ask them that straight up. How is it working here with people on your team or across the company? How is your work received? What's the end result of your work typically? Just be straight up and upfront about these questions that you have, posing them in a way so that the person doesn't feel bad in case they're not in such a great situation as a UXer. But that is a totally fair question. I think also, if you have a startup or a teeny tiny company that may or may not lend itself to a strong UX perspective there, right? It could very much be that user experience is a huge part of that new startup's process, or it could be that they don't think about it whatsoever and they're very business or engineering driven. So you'll want to think of it differently depending on the company that you're looking at, and use different data sources and triangulate those to get as clear of a picture as you possibly can.
Excellent. I hope that helps, and let us know if you have a follow-up question. We're here for another 20 or so minutes. Thanks there. Let's see, looking through my chat. Sebastian is here, or as I should say, Dr. Sebastian Boulnois. He says, just joined this and loved what Amy just said. Understanding people in their context and associated challenges and workarounds should be the base, in my opinion. The challenge in the industry sometimes is to be able to make the client understand that their initial focus might not be what we need to solve for. I'm going to turn that into a question, Amy, even though he didn't ask. Any advice on what we can do if our research starts to point to not validating the problem we heard, invalidating the problem? Some people feel under pressure to validate the problem. What's your advice there?
Yeah, I've talked previously about proactively putting measures in place as much as you can before you get to this point, right? So if you're working with people, or let's say you're in an agency and you have a client that wants research, right? They know they want research. You need to understand, like, how do they even conceptualize research? Why do they want the research? What kind of decisions are they going to make based on the research? If everyone very clear, you can use that to guide them throughout the process. Again, don't get into a room with people without them not being involved in the research or aware of it to some extent. And the more, the better, right? So I think it's the same situation there, essentially.
Super, thanks. We don't have any questions right now, so everybody please ask all of your questions. Let's see how many people are watching live. We have a few people on Twitch.
Ask questions that that you would never want to ask anyone, like, except me. Like, just give me any question that comes to mind, because I will answer any question.
Yeah, it's really Ask Amy Anything, everybody. Let's see, we've got 7 people over on Twitch. I don't have all of the windows open right now, but what questions do you have about research? Let's hear from all of you current researchers, or those of you thinking of getting into research. And I know some of you in the chats right now are thinking of getting into research, so ask those questions. I know a few.
I was going to talk about at least, a researcher, whatever. But I'm happy to answer questions about career specific things, job interviews, telling your professional story, like whatever it might be, whether you're new to UX or you're a lead and you want to move into a director role. Like I work with a lot of different people in these types of roles to answer big questions about their professions, their careers, and getting down to values and what drives them. Confidence in a job search, confidence in speaking up at work, to the tactical things about our professional materials. So if anyone has questions about anything along those lines, just shout out.
Shout them out, everybody. Let's see. Shannon says, share your toughest qualitative research project. All right, let's put up Shannon's
qualitative
question.
Research project.
Yeah, I don't know if you can talk about it or give us a little overview, even if you can't say who it was.
Toughest, yeah. It's funny. I've just been phasing out my research career, so it's been a while. Here's what I can say, and maybe my brain will point to some specific thing, but what I will say is it gets easier the more you practice, the more experience you get. And things that are tough for you when you first get in will no longer be tough for you when you're 3 years in, 5 years in. I think part of it is you get a better understanding of your identity as a researcher. And so there might be situations or aspects of studies, whether it is problems with your team, problems with finding participants for the research, having impact. Maybe your projects get canceled out of nowhere. There's a lot of challenges, and the more experience you have, the easier it becomes for you to deal with those things, to not let them bother you, and you gain a better ability to, I guess, to minimize the number of challenges or frustrations that you have in your work. I mean, I've lived that. I've seen that. I also want to encourage people, and it might be scary for some people, but to own the research process, own the research. You're collaborating with people, but you are the researcher. So that's your expertise. You get to decide, okay, here's how we're going to do things, again, in that conversation, in collaboration with other people. But take that stance of power and ownership, because people want to work with people that they respect, people who are bringing a lot to the table. And so I find that researchers can often be, they want to be on the diplomatic side. Obviously, that's a nice thing. Researchers are typically very nice. They're empathetic towards other people, but you have to kind of set your own boundaries. And if you do a big project and it doesn't go anywhere, then speak up about that and say, well, I'm not going to do work for that client anymore. I'm not going to, do this or that anymore. So I think that's something that has helped me in my career sort of root those things out and deal with them more easily.
Yeah, thanks for that. And it's hard because everything is different. I mean, last year I was part of a 71 person remote observational study, and part of the problem was just the
Wow.
sheer magnitude of it. Now I'm on a project that is so small and specific, we can't even find people who qualify in the recruiting. So there's always
Mm.
fresh problems, Shannon. Enjoy them. And Shannon says, I like what you just said. You want to work with people you respect. We've got Gwen on LinkedIn who asks, the contract position I'm currently in had market research done long before I joined. We're currently doing usability research. I'm a UX designer, and there isn't a separate researcher. What research would you recommend I do next?
You need to know what question you're asking. So are you at the point where you're pretty sure that you have the concept or the prototype or whatever, the thing you want to build or work on? Then you want to look at doing some usability, right? If you're at the point where you don't know what you want to create, but you need to know what the problems are of the people in the world who you're designing for, then that's what you need to understand. So understand where you're at in the process of product development and what types of questions would be most helpful for you at this point. And I think it's cool that you're trying to do research. I think that if you're on this YouTube, this podcast as an audience, that indicates to me that you care about doing this in the right way, because Debbie talks a lot about that, and I think that's who that appeals to people who care about doing things in a quality way. So my understanding is that you are in that position. I would just say, again, do your due diligence. Make sure you're conducting the research correctly. Make sure you're choosing the right methodologies for the question you have. Think along that continuum of, am I exploring what's going on out in the world with these potential customers? Do I have concepts I want feedback on? Do I have a prototype that is in development that I can start to, refine the UI of, or the navigation or whatever? So just make sure you're paying attention to that and that your methods match to the questions that you have.
Yep, perfect. Thanks. Another reminder, everybody, won't you please give me the thumbs up on YouTube if you're there. Join us on Twitch and YouTube. All of the videos are archived on YouTube, so you can always find them there. Twitch is super fun for the live stream. Of course, we have the Slack workspace, which is totally free. deltacx.link/join Slack. And of course, the new and exciting tip jar, deltacx.link/tip. All tips welcome, completely optional. We've got some great questions coming through. We've got Emmy, and then I see Sebastian. So Emmy's question is, what are the biggest misconceptions you or people you're working with have encountered about what UX research entails? Any FAQs to be prepared for?
Like, just read some books so that you know what it entails, and then you can talk about that with people. Like, there are so many things that you can't predict in terms of how people are going to respond and what questions they have. Just get practice with answering all of them and predicting these different types of situations. I think a big misconception is that it's, qualitative research is anecdotal, and no, it's not, because qualitative research or any type of research is a systematic thing that is designed in a very specific way. So you want to be able to talk about that. You want to be able to communicate to people that certain methodologies are not the right ones to answer questions, like doing a survey to understand what you should design, doing a focus group to understand what you should design. So having that knowledge. And then another misconception that I think actually is good in a way is that people think research only happens at, at the tail end of a design where you want to usability test something. So that's a nice moment to educate people that research can happen all throughout the product development process, whether you're starting from scratch and you need to know, like, what are we even doing here? What are we going to build? What are we going to create? To, again, along that continuum of concept testing, prototype, yada, yada. So I think that is actually a good thing, because then people will perhaps desire research more for different parts of that process. And that's never a bad thing, unless you only have one researcher.
Quick question, even though we've got a bunch waiting. Let me ask, do you have any like top 1, 2, 3 books that you tend to recommend over and over about research, especially for people who might be newer to it?
Yes, just zoom in here and take a picture of all of the titles of all my research books up there. No, I would say, Sam Ladner, Practical Ethnography, and it's about ethnography, but I would say it's even more broadly about doing qualitative research in product development. And she speaks very beautifully about not only how to do research, but the kind of things that you might encounter as a researcher. People coming from who have like a numbers-based ideology for decision making, and that sort of thing. So that's a really good book. Steve Portigal's Interviewing Users is a great book. There are Margaret Roller has Applied Qualitative Research Design, which is like the closest you'll get to academia, except it's not academic, it's applied. But she explains things so that you understand, like, oh, this is what makes a quality, valid research study. There's several usability books. Carol Barnum, Usability Testing Essentials.
Hold on, we're getting a request for me to type down everything you're saying. People are asking me to type down everything you're saying. So say some more titles. Say the titles to me again. I'm going to type them and put them on the screen.
Okay, or I can just type them later and send them to people. But okay, Usability Testing Essentials by Carol Barnum. Observing the User Experience. I forget the author and I can't see it all the way from over here. Steve Portigal, Interviewing Users. Sam Ladner, Practical Ethnography. And she also just wrote a new book called Mixed Methods Research, which is, something important for researchers to think about is, can you do mixed methods projects? Can you conduct a study that has multiple phases where you're triangulating data from different sources to create an even more robust picture and understanding and solid argument for what you want to do? So that's good. There's a million that I'm forgetting, but I have a list of all this stuff. I think this is a good start, though.
All right. I think we got, let me fix my font, but I think we got some of those, as well as I could type them on the fly. So, little cut off there. Hold on. Minus. What
I want to say too, and I think Debbie, you talk about this, and Darren Hood talks about this on LinkedIn, but there's like a million posts out there about research and design this stuff, and there's good quality stuff coming out, but there is an overload of information. And I would just please encourage people to just read books. Like, most books are quality. You'll occasionally encounter a book that should not exist, probably. But books are there for you to buy and have in your home and refer to, and you can look and see if the author is a credible author, like what's their background, all of that. Right. And I think in this age of like publishing anything on the internet, anyone can do that. I love the democracy of that, but I do think that books can be forgotten. And there are some books that, we really should be taking a look at. I think one example is Alan Cooper's About Face. This book, it's a big honking book, but it is just this wonderful overview of what design is all about, what user experience design is all about, what are all of the different things that go into this process of creating something. And it came out like, I don't know, 15 years ago, 10, something like that. Yeah. It was around at least when I got into this field. And so that's one that I think gets overlooked a lot, but it has everything in one place.
Super, thank you. So we've got Sebastian's question, then Shannon, then a few more. So I promise I see everybody there. Sebastian says, what are your thoughts on companies not fully understanding what UX people actually do when it comes to recruiting?
When it comes to recruiting, oh, for positions, for UX positions, I
Yeah,
guess is that what that's what
I
that is.
think that's where he's
I
going.
mean, it's a risk. Yeah, I think it's a it's a risk, I suppose, for everyone involved. A risk from the company's perspective, a risk from the applicant's perspective. But that's why you have to ask the right questions. See who you're going to be working with. Is design its own thing, or does it like report up into marketing? That's probably not a good sign. How much power does that team actually have? Again, who's on the team? What's the size of the team? What are the resources that the team has? There are indicators that a company is design driven or not. And so we have to be able to ask the right questions to figure that out. Now, I've gone into companies where that was the case, and it's really frustrating. But if you don't have anyone there to commiserate with and exist with in a way that is okay with you, then that could be a problem, right? So it is also about like how much education is each person willing to do. I kind of gave up on that. I didn't want to like waste my life educating people anymore about the legitimacy of my job, which I take very personally, my career and whatnot. So that's one major reason I left corporate America, basically, because I didn't want to spend my time on that anymore. But then there are companies where it's already in place. It just needs to get built up. And then again, look at yourself and say, how much time do I want to spend educating people? Do these people seem like they're open to learning? Or what is your boundary for doing something like that? Because you have to protect yourself.
Yep, and quickly I'm still writing my HR training, so hopefully I will help make some changes there, but that's in a dreamy dream world. Next question is from Shannon, who wants to know if you are mentoring.
I am a career coach, so I mentor for money. Yes. I go beyond mentoring. Coaching is actually a field, it's actually a discipline of practice. But I think of myself as a coach-sultant in the sense that I coach my clients through asking big questions about themselves, but also going through the job process or even doing research when they get into a company if they need some guidance. But I also I inject consulting into that because I come from UX. I've worked in this field. I'm very knowledgeable about it. So that's kind of the approach I take. If anyone wants to shoot me a quick question, again, I have tons of resources that I can share with people. But if you want to chat about an actual engagement, a collaboration where we can work together in a partnership for that, then you can also let me know that.
Yeah, so everybody get in touch with Amy for her coaching, which I call paid mentoring, and her coach salting. We still have a few more minutes here, so let's get a couple of questions and then we'll start wrapping up. I saw it somewhere here. We have a question from Claire from Oakland. Hi, everyone. Amy, I have my very first UXR interview soon. What kinds of questions can I expect during the interview? Any tips?
Yes. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself is your moment to shine. It's your moment to take total control of the conversation that you're going to have with someone, and not in a controlling way. I'm taking like a powerful, confident stance right away to tell my story. Practice telling your story. Know what your story is. I'm Claire. I'm a researcher. I've been working in this area. I have a background in XYZ. I love research because of ABC. And I'm here today because I'm really interested in working with your company. I love the product that you're working on. It relates to my interests in this way. So it's not just, here's what I do today and here's the company I work at. It's your chance to really shine in that moment and tell a very quick story to get them interested in you, to gain control of that digital room so that they're compelled to learn more about you. So if you start off on the right foot in that way, I mean, I don't see how anything could go wrong. It gives you confidence, it gets them excited. So that's probably the most important question, or one of the most important questions. One of the other most important questions is talking about your process. What's your approach to research? How do you think about research? What kind of process do you typically follow? And you can talk in terms of a specific example, or you can talk generally about how you like to start with collaboration right up front. You know, bringing everyone into the conversation about what is it that we want to learn? What are some challenges that we're having? What are some problems that we need to solve with our product or whatever it might be? Designing a study based off of that. Again, collaborating at any and all points of the process, getting feedback on your research questions, your research discussion guide, the participants that you're recruiting, all of that. So anyway, going back to talking about your process, it's, highlight the main things that would occur regardless of the type of methodology or project it is, right? Talk about how you do your data analysis, talk about different ways that you might present your results. And what that shows is that you, A, know what you're talking about. If you can only talk about research in terms of methodologies or simple concepts, then it shows a lack of knowledge or maturity in that regard. So it shows that you know what you're talking about. It again gives you a chance to, I don't know, set a good tone in that conversation, connect with people, get them excited about possibly working with you, about yourself, your process, and of course, a case study or two. Have that in your back pocket, have that ready to present. But something I heard on a webinar recently, I can't remember which one it was, the person said, if you can get your interviewer to laugh or smile, that can go a really long way. And I really like that too, because this is interviewing is weird for people in general. It's an official conversation, but it doesn't need to feel that way. So if you can get everyone relaxed, make a joke, connect with that person in some way beyond the career, by looking at their LinkedIn and seeing where they went to school or whatever, infusing the conversation with that kind of stuff to make it more of a casual two-way conversation, I think will make it very successful.
Thank you for that. We've got two more questions and we're running out of time. So I am going to ask you for the lightning versions, the lightning round for the fast answers. So yes, the lightning version, please. So the first of the last questions is from Chris. What are some skills a UX researcher should have that are not related to UX research? So maybe skills or personality traits.
Yeah, a willingness to accept feedback and ideas from others to shape your study. So while you might be an expert in research, you want to connect with your team. Again, collaboration really is key, and that makes your research go a long way. So I think that's one thing. I would say too, it's not a skill per se, but it's an awareness and knowledge of all the different types of people that you will be working with or that you are working with. So what does a product manager do, or a product owner, in terms of, I will not say the name of the process where product ownership comes up. Okay, Agile, sorry.
Agile's fine.
You're going to strike me? Oh, I'm allowed to say Agile. Okay.
Agile is often done poorly, but Agile in a vacuum should be good.
Okay, good.
You get the lightning because you need to give us short answers.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Know what other people do, know how to take feedback and get ideas from people, and know how to take a break.
Super. Thank you for the lightning version. And we're going to end with Oz's question. And sorry, I can't put it up. My YouTube thing isn't working today. But Oz on YouTube is asking, do you think new UX people can skip getting a job? Is there a way to go straight into freelancing or being self-sufficient? Jobs can be miserable, but folks need money. So what's your impression? Can you get out of a boot camp or a university degree and go right into research freelancing?
I don't think it's a good idea. And I have felt this way for my entire career because I've worked in all these different places. No. And the reason is because you really just need to know what you're doing. You need to have practice working on the inside of a company to be able to consult them from the outside. I really think having that internal perspective is helpful, but also learning and growing and getting mentorship from other people, I think will make you feel good going into the consulting world.
Great, thank you. That's pretty much what I typed back to Oz. So that's beautiful that we agreed, and you didn't even see me type that. We're going to have to wrap up. So as always, let's wrap up by having Amy give us some last words. And Amy, remind us of where we can find you and follow you: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Where do we find you?
Yeah, no, I'm just on LinkedIn. I'm on there a lot. I love being part of the community on there, meeting new people, people I end up working with, people who become my clients. I've been on there for a long time and really love that community. So that's probably the best place to go. You can go to my website, which is amysantee.com. That has some information about my coaching services. I also have a blog, which I don't know if you can type it on the screen, or I can, just leave it later. It's anthropologizing.com.
Anthropologizing.com. Let's see, I'll put it up and you tell me if I spelled it right. Anthropologizing. Yep. How did I do? All right, I'll make the font
You
bigger.
did perfect. So if anyone wants to go learn more about my own career path, my blog is 10 years old this year, so there's a lot of info on there. But yeah, LinkedIn. And Debbie, I was hoping that we could have like a critical thinking moment. Do you have a hat nearby? I want to see your critical thinking hat. Awesome. Well, I don't have a hat, but I have a shell. I have a critical thinking shell.
I like it.
Yes, I like yours. Yes, exactly. So I'm glad that I could see your Disney hat at least.
I saw 3 of these on eBay recently. So because this is a real Disney issued hat. So if anybody wants a matching hat, I cannot, guarantee anything. Let's also say a quick pre-congratulations to Chris and Claire. Hopefully things will go right in your interviews, and you'll be updating us soon in the coming weeks about if you got some good jobs. Everyone is saying thank you to Amy in both YouTube and Slack. And no, I said Slack, YouTube and Twitch. I'm new to this thing. So we're going to wrap up, but let me give everybody a quick rundown of what's coming up on the show. Sorry, we're running a few minutes late. I hope that's okay, Amy. Here are some show notes of what's coming up. So please mark your calendars. Remember, every Tuesday is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. So I'll be here tomorrow taking your questions, and and all of the live streams will now also be on Twitch. So join us there too. Wednesday the 3rd, we're going to have Nick Grantham on. He is a UX recruiter, and he's going to be talking to us from the perspective of being a UX recruiter. Monday the 8th, I'm going to be debuting my UX apprenticeship model, and I'll be talking about that and taking questions. The 9th, of course, Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday the 10th, we're going to take off of streaming because we're going to have a live networking event for our Slack members. So join the Slack channel if you'd like to be part of the live networking event. Monday the 15th, we'll have Sean McSherry on to talk about UX and autism. Tuesday the 16th, Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday the 17th, third amigo Darren Hood is coming back. He's going to talk about what would the world look like if we actually held UX accountable at our jobs. Monday the 22nd, we're going to have Dimitris Niavis on, who's going to talk about data-driven versus data-informed. Tuesday the 23rd is going to be a very special Office Hours Ask the Three Amigos Anything. We're going to have Darren Hood and Dr. Nick Fine back for an 12-inch extended dance remix version of Office Hours on the 23rd. So it'll be Ask the Three of Us Anything. Wednesday the 24th, I'm doing a comedy podcast about bad UX jobs based on the HR training I'm writing. I've been collecting terrible job descriptions, and I'm going to show you some of them so we can cry together. So that's going to be a little bit of comic relief. And then that actually starts bringing us into March. So I'll quickly mention March 3rd, we're going to have Dr. Seth Finkelback to talk about self-advocacy. And I am also planning currently March 16th, a special Office Hours Ask Me Anything, where a friend of mine who is a professional radio broadcaster in Canada and a comedian will be doing comedy answers to your questions before I give you serious answers. He will only get 15 seconds, so he is getting the lightning round. All right, let's see. Everyone's just full of thank yous, so we're going to say thank you, and I'm going to play us out of here with our parting video. Amy, thank you again, and I know we will all see you on LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn. And Debbie, this was so fun. And thank you so much for your generosity in producing these videos, being on LinkedIn, trying to lift up the discipline to its potential, helping people, being straight with people. We need more of that. And
Thank
I
you.
know all of us really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks for being part of that club. So I will see everybody hopefully tomorrow. Catch you soon. Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.